Good morning. Welcome to Bible class with Betty and Andre. Thank you all for viewing with us today. We are continuing our studies from the book of Acts. Today we are in Acts chapter 24, and we're looking at the subject, Paul's accusers are brought before Felix. Felix is the governor of the Roman Empire, and the judgment seat from which he rules is at Caesarea. But whenever accusers come before a court for judgment, the accusers are lying against whomever they are accusing. And in Revelation chapter 12, we know that Satan is the accuser of the brethren. So when people make accusations against you that are not true, the source from which they're operating is the devil. So we find in Acts chapter 24, Paul's enemies accusing him of false things. So in Acts chapter 24, verse 1, and after 5 days, Ananias, the high priest, descended with the elders and with a certain orator or speaker named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Paul. So it had been 5 days in chapter 23 from the time Paul was arrested. And remember, 7 days he was under a Jewish vow. So it's now been 12 days since Paul was arrested, and these people of the Sanhedrin Council come before the governor to accuse Paul. So after 5 days, that is the total number of days, Ananias, the high priest, descended means he came down to Caesarea with the elders and with a certain orator named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Paul. And verse 2, and when Paul was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence or thy provision. So he's appealing to Felix and being gracious unto Felix in order to get Felix to cooperate with them. So he's appeasing him with pretty words. So Tertullus continued to say in verse 3, we accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness. We thank you for taking care of our people. Notwithstanding, verse 4, that I be not further tedious unto thee, I pray thee that thou wouldest hear us of thy clemency a few words. we're appealing to your kindness. We want you to be gracious unto us and hear what we have to say. Now they're going to bring their complaints against the Apostle Paul, and this is Tertullus speaking. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition, trying to overthrow the government among all the Jews throughout all the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, talking about the followers of Christ. Verse 6. These are accusations against Paul. Verse 6. Who also had gone about to profane or defile the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. But, verse 7, the chief captain Lysias came upon us, and with great violence took him away out of our hands. We would have judged him according to our law, but Tertullus interrupted, but not Captain Lysias interrupted us. Verse 8, commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thyself mayest take knowledge of all these things, whereof we accuse him. And the Jews, or those with Tertullus, also assented or agreed, saying that these things were so. So now Felix is going to allow Paul to speak in verse 10. Then Paul, after that the governor had beckoned unto him to speak, answered, For as much as I know that thou hast been of many years a judge unto this nation, I do more cheerfully answer for myself. Paul says, because I know that you have governed our people for many years, I will gladly answer for myself. Verse 11, because that thou mayest understand that there are yet but 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem to worship. That was my reason for going up to Jerusalem, was to worship. And remember, 7 of those 12 days was under a Nazarite vow. So Paul says in verse 12, and they neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, neither raising up the people, neither in the synagogues nor in the city. Verse 13. Neither can they prove the things whereof that they now accuse me. Verse 14, but this I confess unto thee, Felix, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets, in the Old Testament. The Old Testament is the foundation of the New Testament, and all that the Old Testament pointed to was fulfilled in the earthly ministry of Christ, and then after his death, burial, and resurrection up to the day of Pentecost, were leading up to what Paul is experiencing now. So Paul continues his defense. Verse 15. Believing all that the fathers, that is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the religious leaders believed. Verse 15, and have hope toward God, which they themselves also allow, that there should be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust. Now, these resurrections that Paul is talking about are separated by 1,000 years. The resurrection of the just is the first resurrection, and the resurrection of the unjust is the second resurrection, which occurs at the end of the 1,000-year millennial kingdom period. Verse 16. And herein do I exercise myself in the message of the Old Testament prophets and the law. Herein do I exercise myself to have always a conscience void of offense toward God and toward men. Paul says, I want to have a clear understanding, and I want my conscience to be clear about what I'm teaching and preaching. So verse 17 says, now after many years, I came to bring alms to my nation and offerings. That was another reason Paul says that I went to Jerusalem, not to cause trouble, but to worship God and to bring alms or charitable contributions to the church at Jerusalem and offerings. Verse 18, whereupon certain Jews from Asia found me purified in the temple, neither with multitude nor with violence or tumult, who ought to have been here before thee and object if they had aught against me. Those from Asia found me purified in the temple and taking the Jewish vow. If they had anything, if they objected to what I was doing, then they should be here to accuse me with the rest of you. But they are not here. Verse 20, or else let these same here say, if they have found any evil doing in me while I stood before the council, except it be for this one voice that I cried standing among them, touching the resurrection of the dead, I am called in question by you this day. Remember, the Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection, nor angels, nor spirits. He said, let these accuse me if they have anything to prove that I have done evil. And they are bringing me because of this one word that I'm talking about, the resurrection of the dead. Verse 22. And when Felix heard these things, having more perfect knowledge of that way, he deferred them, he put them off and said, when Lysias the chief captain shall come down, I will know the uttermost of your matter. So Felix says, since I've heard your accusers and I've heard Paul, I have a better understanding of what this is all about. But I'm not going to continue this discussion until Lysias comes down, and then I will learn to the uttermost this whole matter. Verse 23, and Felix commanded a centurion to keep Paul and to let him have liberty, and that he should forbid none of his acquaintance to minister or come unto him. So this is Paul's first imprisonment in Caesarea, In chapter 28, he's going to be in prison in Rome. Verse 24. And after certain days, when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, which was a Jewish, he sent for Paul and heard him concerning the faith in Christ. So Felix was interested in hearing what the Apostle Paul had to say. So he sent for him more often. And as he reasoned, verse 25, and as he, that is Paul, reasoned of righteousness, temperance, and judgment to come, Felix trembled and answered, Go thy way for this time. When I have a convenient season, I will call for thee. And there's no recording that Felix' convenient season ever came, because we cannot come to God when it's convenient for us. We must come to him when he's calling us. Verse 26. Felix hoped also he hoped also that money should have been given him of Paul, that he might release him or loose him. Wherefore he sent for him the oftener and commune with him. So Felix, not really wanting to know about the Lord, but wanting Paul to bribe him, give him money so that he would release Paul, he sent for Paul more often. Verse 27. But after 2 years, Porcius Festus came into Felix's room. In the office of governor, Festus will be the next governor that Paul will have to go before. And Felix, willing to show the Jews a pleasure, left Paul bound. So Paul was bound in the Caesarean jail, prison, for 2 years. And then Porcius Festus came into the office of governor. And so we'll see Paul before Festus in the next chapter. So thank you all for listening. Merry Christmas to all of you and a Happy New Year. I'm praying for you all, and you all keep us in prayer. Thank you for listening, and remember my email address is bjt1125@yahoo.com, and be sure and view my other channels. We've had many lessons on this, on YouTube and social media. So you all, I hope, find these lessons to be helpful. But anyway, email me at bjt1125@yahoo.com. I will see you all next week, and you all have a great day and a great week. Bye.